Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Full Circle Network. I'm editor-in-chief of FullCircleCinema.com, Jackson Hayes, and today we are here to do a spoiler review for Loki Episode 2. So if you have not watched the episode, go ahead and, wait, go watch it, and then come back and listen to our spoiler thoughts about it. Today I'll be joined by my friend and colleague over at Full Circle, Colin Stetzner.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing? I hope you enjoy our review.
So last week we had Jacob and Marcos on to review episode 1. They gave their non-spoiler thoughts. We had seen the episodes ahead of the first episode ahead of time, and now we're here just doing the spoiler review for episode 2. So we'll just try to jump right into it, Colin. I mean, give you your first impressions, maybe just about the first episode and how the second episode opens, and then we'll just try to go from there.
The first episode, I was very surprised by. Like when the Loki series was announced, I wasn't too keen on it. I've never been a Loki fanboy like a lot of people have been that are fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I was a little hesitant, but after that first episode, I could say I'm all in. And with this second episode, it only got so much more interesting and better.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like the first episode, like kind of set the groundwork. Like laid out the rules, like how this show was going to operate outside of the other shows, and how it was going to operate within the time travel that the MCU first introduced in Endgame. And then this episode just goes right off the rails and takes us full on into the adventure and what the story we're going to be dealing with. And I think starting it's kind of low key. They travel first to this Renaissance fair, this location the variant traveled to, the Rogue variant they're trying to capture. And they kind of get there. Some funny bits go on, and it's clear from the jump that Loki's up to no good. I mean, that's who he is. It's what he's done. And he's just he's clearly has intentions that are against what the TVA are going for, and they seem to be aware of that pretty early on. But it's kind of good to see how Loki's character doesn't change that quickly. He just kind of he'll always be nefarious. He'll always be mischievous, and he can't really get away from that. Um, but yeah, what were your thoughts on the sequence on the Renaissance Fair and just the opening in general?
I thought it was great. It's hard at first to remember that this isn't the Loki that's been through Thor Ragnarok and that died in Infinity War. It's hard for me to. I see him being like this nefarious person, like you said. Like he's the god of mischief. He's embodying that. It's difficult for me, not too hard, but it's just I'm used to now seeing this more kinder, gentler Loki. Not this terrible person that's always bothering people, and so seeing him act like that still is kind of like it's nice. It's nice to get back into it because the first story wasn't all that great. He was fine, perfectly serviceable. But then everyone loves the first Avengers, and he's great in that. And so it's nice to still kind of like go back and have that mischievous version of Loki too.
No, for sure. And the dynamic between him and Owen Wilson as Mobius is just so good because, I mean, it's clear that Mobius wants to get something out of him. Like, he stuck his neck out for him in the first episode with the judge and, saving him from getting vaporized. But it's clear that he just wants so badly to get something out of him. Whether it be, like, him coming to terms with himself or him legitimately just helping them catch this variant who's been on killing all their Minutemen. And when they get back to the TVA after Loki kind of foils their plan to capture the variant, kind of lets it escape, waste all their time with the nonsense speech. They go and he puts them on desk work. He has them start looking over the files of the variant and everything. And while the MCU is what the MCU is, and it does one of those really fascinating, interesting things where this is such a specific show that allows the greater MCU to have taken place, but it's taken outside of place. So we're seeing characters react to things they haven't seen before. So like you mentioned, this Loki hasn't dealt with Ragnarok. Well, he goes and finds the file on Ragnarok in the TVA and literally just reads about the movie we watched in which he saved the day and his homeworld was destroyed. I mean, you just can't get that anywhere else. Like there's no other franchise that allows this kind of thing to happen, and I just found that really fascinating.
Yeah, the interconnectivity of it all it's crazy. Like you said, he hasn't even lived through that. He just read about it, and it's so wild that we've gotten to this point that I'm watching a TV show Wednesday mornings at 1 in the morning about this villain from the first Thor and first Avengers film that is he's not even the same villain that we see. It's the whole premise of this whole show is just wild. I mean, and I want to just go back to you talking about the dynamic with Mobius, Owen Wilson's character. It's maybe I'm more of a pessimist, but it also feels like both of them are trying to use each other a little bit. Although, with a lot of Owen Wilson's other roles being this, nice, funny, sweet guy, it's part of me also is like, well, he does just want the best for Loki, and seeing so like hitting that, and then also knowing who Loki is, he's the god of mischief, obviously. Their dynamic in this buddy cop scenario is just it plays so well because that look they just have their chemistry is off the charts, and they have some of the funniest scenes like when Loki confronts him about his theory about where he's hiding, and he destroys Mobius's lunch. I mean, I
with the
was laughing
salad.
so
Yeah,
hard. Yeah, he's eating
yeah,
the salad and he just dumps all the pepper and he's dumping all the salt, and then he takes God, what's his name?
Casey's.
Casey's milk and just dumps it all in there. And it's just it's a funny scene, and it's not that it's like overly comical, that there's like a supposed to be a haha funny joke told right there, but it's also like, okay, he's messing with his food, that's funny, but it's also just their relationship that they've built up already is it just makes it even better. And it's crazy that this happens 1.5 episodes in that I'm already praising their their chemistry.
Right. I mean, it's the old cop who's been on the beat for a long time who gets thrown in with a hot-headed rookie who has no idea what he's doing and is always just messing everything up. I mean, it's a classic story, but in the realm of the MCU, it's a whole different dynamic. And I mean, it's great. I mean, he Loki discovers that he tries through seeing Ragnarok, he realizes that, or at least he theorizes that the variant is hiding in apocalyptic events. Right? He theorizes that if somebody goes to an apocalyptic event, because that place, an area, and people are destined to be destroyed, it doesn't matter if you change time around it or change events before it happens, it's always going to be destroyed. So if you go and hide out there, then nothing will matter. The TVA won't catch on to your altering of the timeline. So Mobius thinks this is crackpot. He thinks that the TVA are then it's one of those things we have to touch on is like the TVA in general. Like the mystique of it is really mysterious. They won't say where the timekeepers really are. They don't really know what they're doing. They're just off, right? They're doing whatever they're doing, and they just have to follow their rules. And Mobius is so blindly believing that the TVA can't do any wrong that he thinks that Loki's theory is ridiculous, right? That would never happen. And then in this hilarious bit, with little historical, I know you're a big history guy. It's what you studied in school. They go to Pompeii, of all places. They could go to an MCU location. They could go this, that, or the other, but no, they just choose Pompeii. And I thought that was a really good bit. I thought it was you go there and Loki just starts throwing everything around, and Mobius is losing his mind. Is in every scene they're in, it's basically that. And then he has to realize that Loki actually might have some good ideas and might be smarter than he actually looks.
Yeah, I think I knew right away when they were going to test. I just felt it right away that it was going to go to Pompeii, and they played it up good, and they could have done an inappropriate joke. I think we all know the story of that one guy at Pompeii. We've all seen that image,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and I was kind of hoping they would do it, but they didn't, which is good. It's a Disney Plus show, so we can't get too dirty, which is fine. But that genuinely, the dynamic is funny. It's that old trope, like you said. It's old cop, new cop. That's wild. Old cop's grizzled. It's Lethal Weapon. MCU Lethal Weapon is what we're dealing with, and his amazement in the fact that Loki was right, and that maybe you're right, that there's the mystique around the TVA. Maybe the timekeepers aren't all that protective of the timeline if someone can hide out in a apocalyptic event like that and nothing happens. I mean, because still, I mean, it's the hard thing about the time travel here that we got dealing with in the MCU, because we're all based to regular Back to the Future rules, and then we have that whole and Endgame happens, and we realize, oh, you can time travel, but it's also your future now. And then now we have this also where they're going back in time, but they can also start other branches. It's taking some getting used to, and I'm just excited to see how the whole TVA role is going to play out even further with everything that happens.
I mean, each episode, like much like WandaVision, where like things like slowly unraveled. Like Loki has mysteries, yes, but the whole WandaVision was mostly based on mystery, right? The whole thing was a mystery from the start. Whereas they're clearly setting up little mysteries here and there, like who's the Loki variant, which we'll get to in a few minutes. And with the TVA, like the TVA in general, what's going on. And like it's clear, like all of these people, like Casey mentioned in the first episode, he's never left his desk. And the conversation in this episode, which I thought was another hilarious, funny bit, was a jet ski, right? The bit about the jet ski between Mobius and Loki, where he's talking about, well, why haven't you ever been on a jet ski? He's like, well, a TVA agent can't, would go back, mess with the sacred timeline and get on a jet ski. Well, Loki goes back and messes up with Pompeii. So it's clear that the timekeepers aren't really what they say they are, right? Like if they have their people believing that they can't go back and get on a jet ski without throwing off the flow of time, like clearly there's something behind the scenes that we don't know and that they even don't know, because they state in the first episode that the timekeepers created the TVA agents. They weren't they didn't recruit them, they didn't bring them in, they were created seemingly out of thin air, right? And they don't know anything else. They just appear to be human, work in a bureaucratic office, and that's kind of the end of it. And it's taking Loki to push these boundaries and try to ask the tough questions about where these things come from. Why do you do what you do? We just do what we do. We don't. It doesn't matter where we came from. It's by the end of it, and I mean, we can get all big brain and talk about multiverse madness and No Way Home, and that's a whole other conversation. But it's clear they're slowly unraveling this mystery of the multiverse and how the timekeepers aren't really what they're supposed to be. And that's why I think it's so interesting that Loki makes his goal pretty clear in this episode, that he wants a meeting with the timekeepers and he plans to overthrow them, which is ambitious. Honestly, it might be his most ambitious plan yet.
Yeah, I guess we get to call him the new ruler of the timeline then, I guess. So that it is his most ambitious attempt to rule, which is what he's always wanted to do.
Yeah, he tried to be king of Earth. That was like the line, right? He just wanted to rule Midgard, and then like he said earlier that then space. It's a good feather in your cap, space. Loki, the king of space. But the timeline, like that's big stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, the way it was described to me, I think I can't remember if it was this episode or the first episode, that the implication is that the timeline also is not finished yet. Like, the timekeepers are still working on how everything eventually wraps up, if everything would wrap up in this scenario. So I think it's just it also implies maybe that Loki, if he could become this ruler, he could change. What's to say he couldn't change the past, or because we don't know how this works. We don't know the power of the timekeepers. I'm sure maybe someone in the like a big comics fan. I know I'm not the biggest comics fan, and I know you aren't. Maybe if Jacob was on, he maybe would know some about about them.
Yeah, the limits of their power.
Yeah.
Like at what point does it stop?
Yeah, but I mean then it could be changed for the MCU. Like they aren't necessarily set by the bounds of the comic books, so we don't know how their power works. We don't know if they could possibly make Loki a regular Loki and keep that okay, or if he becomes the timekeeper, if he considers himself the Loki, then it's just the possibilities are endless with this scenario.
Yeah, and I think that his ambition for this plan kind of is the basis of the entire episode, at least his motives through the entire episode, because they go back after Pompeii, they go back and they try to figure out which apocalyptic event in history is the Loki variant hiding out in, and they go through like a list, and they try to cross reference it with the piece of gum that Mobius found in the first episode, and the piece of gum was like sold between like the 2030s and 50s or 40s and 50s. I can't remember what the exact wording was, but like in these certain stores, and so they found it, and it ended up being a
Roxxon store, right?
Yeah, Roxxon store. It was a Roxxon town. I think the whole town was owned by Roxxon, and this big superstore. was owned. It was called Rocksmart, and in 2015 it was being hit by this horrible storm, and like everyone was going to be wiped out. All these people in this store that they're hiding out, and they find out that that's where the Loki variant is hiding. And Mobius has to go get approval from the judge. And she gets it. She gives it again, but reluctantly again. She's clearly not trusting Loki in any way, shape, or form. And then they head out there, and it's clear from the start, like things aren't going to go the way they want. They start fighting the mind controlled people who are being controlled by the Loki variant as the variant kind of runs around the store. And honestly, it was a really good sequence. It was really kind of ominous at the beginning. Like it was kind of creeping me out.
Oh yeah, and I think that has to do in part with the fact that it wasn't the Loki variant right away. Like it wasn't revealed. It was just the random people, and so to not like we know who our adversary is in this. We know who the villain. I guess if you want to say a villain in this is a Loki, and we're confronted with the villain. But here it is, and it's not Loki. It's just a random person, and then it goes to another random person, and to another random person, and they're all just talking in a monotone tone. It's a very calm conversation, but for us, the viewer, our anxiety is going through because we don't know what's going to happen. We're constantly wondering, and we also know right there that okay, this isn't Loki. We're still looking for Loki. So what is this? So it was very ominous.
Yeah, and then finally we end up getting our answer. Loki breaks away from the group after saying he would stay with the one agent. I wish I could pick up on her name. Either they don't mention it, or I'm just not picking it up when I'm looking around. But she's been in both episodes, and she's really funny. He breaks
cop?
Away from the
I
cop.
can't remember her name either. But
I can't remember. But he breaks away from her, and then he ends up fighting her because she turns later on. But then it's clear that he again is on like his own mission in this mission, right? Like he's not here to capture the Loki variant, and he makes it clear. He starts telling the person control, the civilian who's being controlled, that his plan is to take over the timekeepers in the sacred timeline. He wants this Loki's help. He thinks this Loki can help him get to his goal and figure things out. And it's clear that Loki's kind of just buying time and wasting his time. And then eventually they come and reveal themselves, and it's Lady Loki. It's a female version of Loki, which a lot of people have theorized was going to be in the show or be involved in some way, shape, or form. But it's kind of exciting to see it, and it just kind of leaves this like really up in the air, like, well, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, because it's this Loki is a time variant, but our Loki from this universe it's Tom Hiddleston. It's not Lady Loki. It's a regular old-fashioned Loki that we're used to since the first Thor. So seeing a Lady Loki immediately made my mind jump to how is this possible? Is it a multiverse situation? Is this a different Loki from another universe? Because that's the whole thing. It's what the timekeepers are doing. They're trying to navigate the entirety of these multiverses into one timeline. Or is the possibility this is also Loki? I know in the comics that Loki has been a girl, and I think a kid also, and maybe like a wolf also. I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Is a kid that's a wolf, and there's like maybe he'd been a wolf. He's been countless different forms.
And so I don't know if they in the MCU are letting that make like that go and do it, like let him like have that be in his past, or maybe this is from the past even before, because Loki, our Loki, Tom Hiddleston, wasn't surprised at all to see that it was a Lady Loki.
Yeah, that wasn't the shock, right? It wasn't the shock of seeing a female. It was the shock of her actions more so than anything. Yeah. He was so convinced that when he found this Loki, they were going to jump right on board with his plan. But it's very clear that this Loki has a very different set of goals, and she's been stealing all these reset charges, as was seen at the end of the first episode. She stole one from the thing, and then it's the situation where you're just left on the edge of your seat because she sets off these reset charges. And another Jacob, I think, pointed this out to me, was that of the list of places, there was nowhere Nevadelir Ego was even on there of the list of locations that were being sent to, which even opens up this whole other Pandora's box, because as we know, Ego was destroyed. Nevadelir was left more or less abandoned by the end of Infinity War. and nowhere was still around. Sure, but it had been at least
Yeah,
portions of it had been burned down.
or the
So
collector's place had at least been
right,
destroyed.
the collector's plate. Right, so it was one of those situations where you're like, well, what are these being sent to different points in the timeline, like various different times to one certain time? Are they? What are the reset charges doing? Like, are they reversing time, or are they like it? I mean, obviously, the episode ends with Loki running through the portal in which the lady Loki runs into, with Mobius running off to try to stop him, not knowing, because it's clear. It's to me at least at that point, it feels as if Loki's more after it now. He's after answers. Like he's even like trying to get answers from this, and not more so than getting like them to join their plan. It's more about like understanding what the hell that Loki's doing and why.
Yeah, it definitely the look on his face when Mobius is chasing after him. It doesn't look like mischievous. It looked more like he had a question. He had a question and he needed the answer to. And I think there's the play that he could have gotten away with it back with the TVA if he would have stayed perhaps with Mobius, but he needs these answers from Lady Loki because it's clear that she didn't want to help him overthrow the Time Lords, and so it's he doesn't know her plan because he does. I'm sure he doesn't understand the intricacies of everything, like with all the resets. Like you mentioned all the places they were. It's like he doesn't know her plan, so he's got no idea. So he's also probably he's like safe bet that if I'm gonna survive, it's gonna be with this other Loki.
Yeah, I mean it's an incredible cliffhanger. It's just one of those things where like they drop this bombshell on you. Here's Lady Loki. These reset charges go off to the sacred timeline all over the place. You don't know why or even when in time they're going, and you're just left with your jaw on the floor. You're like, well, what is going on? And I think that's where the show is at its best, is when it's introducing this kind of Pandora's box, but it's not biting off more than it could chew, or as feel WandaVision did that from time to time, where when it set itself up really high and it didn't necessarily land.
Yeah,
whereas
the mystery seemed bigger than it was.
Right, and I think in this case, like Loki's setting up smaller mysteries and then kind of just like unraveling them and then immediately starting a new one, and it's kind of I've enjoyed that for the most part.
It's worked tremendously, and I think there's the chance now. As much as Endgame was like a little love letter to the MCU, I think with all these reset charges going to different spots, we could also see, like a second little love letter to the MCU with what I'm assuming, and I have no idea because we weren't able to see episode 3 or 4 or anything else, so that they are probably going to be traveling through different, big events and big places that we've seen in the MCU.
Right. This is complete speculation, but a lot of the promotional material and the trailer, at least, showed Loki popping up in what appears now to be the Rocksmart, with all those people around him, and he's wearing like the President Loki thing and the big hat,
Yeah.
or the big horns, and that appears to be in the Rocksmart. So I'm feeling like we're going to get a situation where maybe, I don't know if it's one episode or at least the beginning of an episode, he's running through time, like to different periods, and like there appears to be like like Mongolian warriors there, like warriors from all over the place, all over time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we're getting one of those sequences soon where he's just rumbling, bumbling through time.
I would think so because typically a lot of the promotional material we've seen tends to be from these first couple episodes. And
Absolutely.
we get little pieces of episodes 4, 5, 6 every now and then. Like a lot of like Falcon Winter Soldier reused Sam training with the Shield, and that was basically all we got from those last couple episodes. And so from this, obviously not having seen every episode, I'm assuming it's going to be the same thing. We're going to get a couple tidbits from the last couple episodes, but the promotional material was probably a lot of these first 2 episodes. Like I didn't expect. Oh God, I can't think of his name. The plane robber.
DB Cooper.
Yeah, DB Cooper. I didn't expect that to be in the very, I think it was in the first 20 minutes of the.
Yeah,
very
it was.
first episode.
I was.
I didn't expect that at all. Because I thought, he's going to travel through time and maybe do it, but no, that so I have no idea what they're doing, where they're going to go, and I'm really happy about that. I think with WandaVision we had a lot of ideas that were, not spot on, but pretty like, okay, we could tell where this was kind of going. And same thing with Falcon and Winter Soldier. And this one, I legitimately can't tell you what they're going to do besides Loki's gonna be the main character. That's all I can tell
Yeah,
you.
I mean, it's kind of
And
the
that's pretty
basis, right?
obvious.
Yeah. Like that's it. That's all we got. They've really left it up in the air, and I think like there isn't. Whereas like I mean, WandaVision didn't, but Falcon and Winter Soldier definitely had like a point A to point B. Like we were just kind of waiting to get to point B. Like Sam was going to
Yeah,
pick up the shield eventually.
we knew
And
the outcome. Yeah,
right, and even in WandaVision, like at some point, they had teased like she's gonna become the Scarlet Witch. Like we're gonna get there. And well, we didn't necessarily know the journey. We got there, right? This I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you what point B is.
No,
I have zero clue.
especially with the fact that what Loki's goal is, and we don't know Lady Loki's goal, and the fact that Loki should be dead. They killed. They just, if I remember right, I don't know if they do it to every time variant, but it just appeared like they just killed every time variant. Didn't matter. Didn't discriminate. They just hit you with their little wand, and you were dead.
You're not supposed to be here. Loki just happens to be a specific case because they need to track another
because they
Loki.
needed him. Yeah,
right. They had a lucky shot because they probably get countless variants every day. I mean, they saw the Goldman Sachs guy from the first episode was the only other one there. But I'm sure all week they get like various, and they've already said Loki's the most notable variant they have. They get him all the time.
mm-hmm.
It's just this one that is so mischievous and able to escape them. But yeah, I think we've covered most of it by this point. You have any final thoughts before we head out?
It's really good, and I think we might be both in agreement here that as much as we've loved everything else that the MCU Disney Plus has done, these first 2 episodes have intrigued me the most out of every series, and I'm definitely probably the most excited for what we're gonna see. Which you asked me a year ago, I would have told you if I was gonna be more excited to watch Loki than Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I would have told you you're not very smart. But I'm excited to see where we go.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm agree with you there. I think outside of Falcon and Winter Soldier episode 5, maybe, which opened with the fight with the fight sequence that I just adored. I think this might be my favorite episode of the Disney Plus series. I think this one is just incredibly fascinating and has enough MCU things that it fills your quota there, and everything is just on steroids that you love about the first episode. And I just I think they've hit the nail on the head with this one for sure. So yeah, I think that'll wrap it up. You wanna plug your social media before we head out, Colin?
You can find me on Twitter at CSTetsy20. I think I changed it up. So
the last
I'm
time.
being correct, but if you look, I'm sure I've been mentioned in a at Full Circle Cine tweet. So you could probably find me there.
Yeah, you've been doing our Bad Batch reviews, so you should be on those tweets if you want to check him out there. And you can find me at JacksonHayes67 on Twitter and follow Full Circle, and make sure to check out the website. We'll have a Loki review up as well. It should be up around the same time as this podcast goes up on YouTube. Timing may be a little off, but it should be. So check there if you're interested in reading our spoiler-ish review of Loki episode 2, and we will be back next week, hopefully, to do episode 3. So thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Let us know what you think in the comments below.